Was
Okay.
they said if it was Sandy or Lansing, they were right when they said that the public.
Okay.
Down, I
I'd
think
like
that's
to
fine.
figure out how many people really watch.
I think a lot more people watch it.
I think so.
No, I think I have people every now and then will say something like, really? You watch that? I mean, it's.
I have been surprised.
John's
that
in order
people
until
watch.
Todd will be here.
We got
I
paid.
have-
That's very exciting.
I didn't get paid.
Good news. Next time they have a budget. It's a small line.
Small line items, right.
Let's fix that.
I think we should.
We
That's no good.
Call the City Commission Thursday, May 25th meeting to order. First item on the agenda would be the May 11th meetings or minutes. Any changes? Stand as written. Next item on the agenda would be the financial statement. You reading it?
Mayor and Commissioners, I'm Assistant City Manager Jacob Wood. The Finance Director is out of town, so I will be hitting the highlights on the financial report. Revenues in April totaled $2,028,239, which is a decrease of $140,000 compared to the same period last year. Notable areas of increased revenue in April include $86,604 in local alcoholic liquor tax. This is basically due to a disbursement of that tax at a different time than last year. Notable areas of revenue decrease compared to April 2016. Transient guest tax for the CVB fell $214,000. This is also a thing with the timing of distribution. We received transient guest tax we won't receive it until May 1 this year as compared to April 18th in 2016. Expenditures in April totaled $3,031,686. This is an increase of $1,154,820 as compared to 2016. The notable areas of increased expenditures for April 2016, most of that increase in expenditures is due to approved transfer from the Commission Capital Reserve in the amount of $1,467,000 and $1,467,052, and that's to pay cash for the 8th Street reconstruction. Notable areas of decreased expenditure compared to April 2016. Just as reported last month, there were 3 payrolls in March of 2017. There were 3 payrolls in April of 2016, so those line items are down across all funds by about $369,000. Month-to-date general sales tax collections were at $528,511, which is an increase of $14,673, or 2.86% as compared to last year. Year-to-date general fund collections are at $2,350,236, up $1,861, or 0.8%, when compared to actuals from a year ago. The report of the quarter-to-date sales tax collections by industry classification was down $3,434, or 0.19%. These top 10 represent 72% of the total quarter-to-date sales tax distribution. The Finance and City Clerk's Office invested $3,200,000 of maturing or renewing certificates with a weighted average interest rate of 1.19%. The portfolio of certificates of deposit on April 30th, 2017 totaled $58,900,000 with a weighted average interest rate of 0.87%, which is up 0.4 from a year ago. The total balance of the money market account for April 30th, 2017 was $1 million with a current yield of 0.2%. Total investments are up $3,500,000 when compared to this time last year. And I'll stand for any questions.
Would move that we accept that rather shakily presented financial report.
Yeah, it's harder to read numbers than you would think. So,
Motion by Commissioner Myers, second by Commissioner Jones. Yes, it's nice to see the sales tax a little bit in the positive for once. Any other comments?
My heart about skipped a beat when I seen the alcohol sales tax go up that much. I thought it was all from Sunday liquor sales.
You're just ready to declare victory, that's all.
I bet you were. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Say, passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is citizen comments. Seeing none. Citizen comments? No? Okay. All right, next item on the agenda would be consent agenda. As you can see, I have some appointments, and I also have some recommendations. So if you take a look at that, and I would take a motion.
Take a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Jacobs. Sorry. Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda would be the building code update. Jesse Rohr.
Good evening. Jesse Rohr, Planning Inspection Enforcement Superintendent. This agenda item is regarding building code updates, and while it is considered somewhat routine, it's typically only done every 4 to 8 years. City staff, as well as the Building Trades Board, is recommending adoption of the 2015 International Codes and the 2014 National Electric Code. The full proposal includes the 2015 International Building Code, International Residential Code, International Fire Code, International Existing Building Code, and the International Property Maintenance Code, as well as the 2014 National Electric Code. Current codes have been in place since late 2006, and while the 2006 codes have been good codes, it's now time for an update for various reasons. I mentioned there's some reasons that we want to choose to update our codes at this time. First, technology is always changing. Regular and timely code updates provide for safer building construction due to new technology, including studies of building practices, new products, and general advances in building trades. Updates also provide for adequate training of both staff, inspectors, and contractors alike. Under current code, the 2006 I codes and 2005 NEC, training is no longer available. All local training available for contractors at this time is on newer code editions. Training on the new codes makes them easier to use and understand by staff, contractors, and professional designers. So far, staff has spent several months in-house and at trainings learning about the new codes and the changes within. Staff has had several meetings with the Building Trades Board and licensed contractors to discuss the code changes in depth. The ICC codes are available online to all for free, making it easy for anyone to access the codes to review them at any time and at no cost. On February 27th of this year, by a unanimous vote of 5-0, the Building Trades Board did recommend to the City Commission to move forward with the updates of the various codes. If approved, the updates will take effect July 1st, 2017, which gives contractors, staff, supply houses, and professional designers some lead time to adjust to any coming changes for any upcoming projects. At the March 23rd City Commission meeting, staff was asked by the City Commission to prepare and present the significant changes to the codes and bring back for discussion at a later date. That brings us to the rest of the presentation tonight. The next several slides will provide detail of significant changes to the various codes, similar to the memos that were prepared by staff. I will present all but the International Fire Code changes, which will be discussed in depth by Fire Chief Gary Brown. I'm going to go through these slides fairly quickly tonight. It is a fairly lengthy presentation, so feel free to stop me at any time if you have any questions. Starting off with the IBC. Each code has a specific purpose, and that of the IBC, or International Building Code, is to establish the minimum requirements to provide safety to life and property. It's important to keep the purpose of each code in mind as the significant changes are discussed tonight. Also, as we go through these, remember that all the codes are minimum standards. Just as each code has a specific purpose, each code has a specific application as well. The IBC generally covers anything other than 1 or 2 family dwellings or townhouses. Your agenda packet contains detailed memos for each of the codes that lists all the significant changes. I will touch briefly on just a few of the noted changes for each code, so if there's something you want to discuss that I don't mention, please let me know. Under the new code, storm shelters will be required in all emergency facilities and new schools. This change regarding fire alarm pull station locations is more practical than the previous code, eliminating them in some cases. The new codes in the IBC greatly enhance carbon monoxide detection alarm requirements. We'll also see this change in the IRC a little bit later. Revising occupant load in this particular section, section 1004 of the IBC, should reduce the required number of exits, number of restroom stalls and fixtures, number of required parking stalls, among other things. This will be a big benefit to a developer or business owner and should help to reduce costs on new buildings. Section 2902.3 of the IBC, providing public toilet facilities for small quick service businesses was always a controversial issue and often created a hardship for business owners. This section would apply when the public access area is less than or equal to 300 square feet, which again should help business owners reduce construction costs. We are not proposing any local amendments to the International Building Code. Now on to the IRC. This code applies to single-family, duplexes, and townhouses. The code itself is formulated by the members of the ICC through an extensive public interaction process. City Hayes staff actually attended some of the code hearing sessions at the national conference last October as part of the code development process. So now the significant changes of the IRC. This change was based on professional studies in engineering. and changed the wind design speed from 90 miles an hour as it is currently to 115 miles an hour. Storm damage data was used to help determine minimum wind speed requirements. This new code would allow habitable rooms as small as 70 square feet, rather than the 120 square feet required now. This particular code was initiated due to the tiny house movement. Minimum ceiling height reduced from 7 feet in the current code to 6'8". This small change can make or break a habitable room. In the building industry, 4 inches can make a lot of difference. This one I'm going to take a little bit more time and give a little bit more explanation on, because we are proposing a local amendment on this one as well. The 2015 code finally addresses existing basements and egress windows, something that has been long awaited. The 2015 code as written would only require an egress window in an existing basement if a new bedroom was created. Under this code, an entire basement could be gutted and remodeled at unlimited expense or area, and no egress windows would be required to be installed, unless a new bedroom was actually created. Staff proposes an amendment that would increase the requirements for egress windows by requiring them anytime a permit was pulled for a remodel of habitable space in an existing basement or where one or more sleeping rooms are added. I do have one more slide on this a little bit into the presentation where I actually talk about the local amendment slightly. Take any questions, like I say, stop me at any time. This is a significant change that has come up from time to time. Now, shorter guardrails can be allowed when fixed seating is placed along a walking surface, such as on a deck. I mentioned the CO alarms in commercial businesses, and they also apply to residential projects as well. CO alarms will be required if a home has a fuel-fired appliance or an attached garage. Also, certain projects now no longer trigger CO requirements as they did in a former code. Issues with deck collapses causing serious injuries and deaths have resulted in this particular change to the code. It is more prescriptive and more strict than found in current code. The 2015 IRC currently places a maximum size of 200 square feet for an accessory building before a permit is required. I mentioned this section here starts out the local amendments that we're asking for to the code. This amendment would make the IRC consistent with current practice as well as the UDC, the Unified Development Code, and is a carryover from the current code. 120 square feet has been the limit for many years with no issues noted. This proposed amendment makes the IRC consistent with current practice as well as the UDC, and again is a carryover from current code. As has been the practice for years, a standard fence 6 feet in height or less will not require a permit. This same amendment has been part of adopted ordinance for many years. Many years ago, in order to ensure compliance on ADA standards for sidewalks and accessibility, the City of Hayes began requiring permits for concrete sidewalks, including sidewalks that cross driveways, as well as curb cuts at driveways and intersections. This allows inspection staff to verify proper slopes to keep the public way accessible per local, state, and federal law. The amendment makes the IRC consistent with current practice and the UDC. It is a carryover from current code and also complements the sidewalk replacement rebate program. In order to be consistent with other codes, such as accessory buildings, and because of the safety factors involved with larger decks, this is being proposed to be amended to 120 square feet, as has been the standard for many years. This amendment makes the IRC consistent with current practice and also is a carryover from current code and not a new change. Kansas state law makes it unlawful for any jurisdiction in the state of Kansas to adopt regulations requiring fire sprinkler systems in 1 or 2 family dwellings. Therefore, this local amendment will strike that from the code. This is the amendment, again, about the egress windows that I discussed earlier as a significant change.
Jesse, can you go back for a second? Try- Okay, go ahead.
This is another section in the IRC that calls out for fire sprinkler systems. Again, the state statute does not allow them, so we're striking that section from the code. Since adoption of the first International Building Code in 2004, the City of Hayes has had a requirement to remove all existing layers of roofing materials prior to re-roofing a structure, with a few exceptions. Having no more than one layer of shingles on a roof reduces hail impact damage due to the solid decking immediately underneath the shingle layer, as opposed to having multiple layers of shingles. This has been the standard in Hayes since January of 2004 and has been widely accepted by contractors as well as local insurance companies when processing claims. This amendment makes the IRC consistent with current practice and is a carryover from current code. This amendment as well makes the IRC consistent with current practice. The current code does not have prescriptive insulation values since energy codes were not as predominant in 2006 as they are now. The values stated above were decided upon with the assistance of the Building Trades Board and licensed contractors. Most of the 2015 IRC R values were significantly higher than those being proposed.
And Jesse, those apply to new construction, not to if you were to gut and remodel an existing structure, correct?
That is
Or
correct.
am I wrong?
Correct, that's correct. This change is a result of the blower door infiltration test performed by Midwest Energy on all new homes. The tightness of the homes results in a diminished number of air exchanges per hour, resulting in unhealthy air for the occupants. The code has recognized this as an issue, and while some homes are being built to this standard currently, many are not and will be required to do so if adopted as proposed. This change was also vetted through the Building Trades Board and licensed contractors. That completes the discussion of the IRC. I'll move on to the International Property Maintenance Code. This code applies to residential and commercial properties, whether owner-occupied or a rental. The International Property Maintenance Code, or IPMC, includes provisions for such items as safety, as a safe means of egress, remediation of hazardous structural conditions, and a clean and sanitary environment. The IPMC is utilized by city staff to enforce these various provisions on rentals, as well as other owner-occupied dwellings or commercial structures when necessary. There's only a couple significant changes found in the IPMC. One change allows the use of other codes as options for repair or alterations. Another change requires a sign indicating the location of the fire department connection when it's not clearly visible. There are no proposed local amendments to the International Property Maintenance Code. Now the existing building code. As the name implies, it pertains to existing buildings. It would not be prudent on our part to make all existing buildings comply with codes meant for new construction. The existing building code, or IEBC, is the middle ground between applying those new codes and no codes at all. Again, only a couple changes in the IEBC. This particular change may require special safety hardware in certain cases when a window is a certain height above grade, which typically applies on a second story or higher window, and it's in order to provide fall protection. With this change, windows in existing buildings are allowed to be replaced with a window of the largest size that will fit into the existing opening. This results in having to do no enlargement of the existing opening. This change pertains to ADA regulations and would require an accessible route to both toilet facilities and drinking fountains instead of just one or the other, as was in previous codes. This particular change could reduce fire-rated construction requirements in certain cases. Again, we are asking for no local amendments to the IEBC. Okay, the last of my codes before we get on to the fire code, the National Electric Code. The first edition of the NEC, or National Electric Code, was published in 1897, and a new edition of the code is promulgated every 3 years. Each new edition of the code goes through the same rigorous public proposal, comment, and review process. As with any code, the authority having jurisdiction, or AHJ, in our case the building official, has the responsibility for making interpretations of the rules, for deciding on the approval of equipment and materials, and for granting the special permission contemplated in a number of the rules. Now on to the significant changes of the NEC. One thing we notice is that there are several additional ground fault circuit interrupter protection requirements in many cases. In a similar fashion, there are additional arc fault circuit interrupter protection requirements in many cases as well. This change is pretty straightforward. States that dwelling garages must have a separate branch circuit and at least one receptacle for each car space. Probably won't result in a change of practice. We typically see that in all new homes built today, but it's in the code now. This new rule will permit installers and inspectors to verify the information regarding weight-bearing capacity of outlet boxes, particular ceiling fan boxes, without seeing the outside of the outlet box, which is often inaccessible. Additional tamper-resistant receptacle protection is now required in many cases, and it was especially expanded to hotel motel guest rooms and child care facilities. The 2014 NEC does add some additional protection for permanently installed pools. There's one local amendment that we're asking for in the NEC, which has been in current ordinance for well over 10 years. This local amendment is consistent with the last several adoptions of the various NEC editions and is not a change in practice or ordinance. It simply requires an exterior disconnect for the main electrical service, whereas code actually allows an interior disconnect as well. With that, I will turn it over to Fire Chief Gary Brown, and I'll be back up just for a couple slides when he's complete.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Gary Brown, the Fire Chief.
Good evening.
Sorry. Excuse me.
Fancy with this mouse. Right down here.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, thanks. Sorry, Commissioners. The International Fire Code represents fire protection requirements for both new and existing buildings that the fire department enforces. And in order to have good fire protection, what a community needs is good code enforcement as well as good firefighting services, good fire suppression. That the code, the Unified Development Code, the Building Code, the maintenance codes, the Property Maintenance Code, the existing building code, those are all part of making this community safe. And if we don't have those kinds of codes in place, then the risk of manual firefighting becomes too great, and manual firefighting tends to fail. Communities that have good good code enforcement in all the building codes and the zoning codes generally have less fire loss. The other thing that the fire code does for us is authority at fires and other emergencies. This is where the fire department gets the authority to take over private property and do whatever is necessary in order to resolve the problem. And this is very important. It's not just fires, but it's also rescue emergencies and hazardous conditions, including hazardous materials. I'm sorry, it's just not doing it again. What'd you do? I'll use that. Okay. The code, fire code, is another consensus model code. And basically, it's the standard of care, the best practices that people would want. Where other codes are triggered, however, by complaints, or somebody wants to build something new or renovate something, the fire code is not triggered by anything except the duty of the fire department to make sure that the buildings are maintained safely. So we regularly make fire and life safety inspections to the buildings in the community. We oversee the correction of maintenance concerns. If we find structural concerns like an unsafe furnace or those types of things, then we turn it over to PI, and PI corrects the problem, and we monitor it to make sure it gets corrected. It doesn't apply to 1 and 2 family dwellings except for the display of house numbers, being able to have fire truck access, the amount of the water supply and fire hydrant distribution, and of course the authority to deal with the emergency at that house. The construction of new buildings, the fire code basically mirrors, actually it mirrors exactly the International Building Code. All the fire protection features, sprinklers, firewalls, fire doors, fire alarms, all those things are, those requirements are made in the International Building Code, but they're mirrored in the fire code. But the fire code has specific requirements that aren't in the building code, and that would be hazmat, how to regulate and properly store and use hazardous materials, fire truck and firefighter access to the building, water supply and fire hydrant distribution, how much water is required and how many fire hydrants and where they get located, and other requirements for effective firefighting. And to make this process user-friendly for the development community, the fire department doesn't directly deal with developers. We work through PI so that there's no confusion. They don't get conflicting requirements. PI is their contact, and PI works with us, and we work with PI to make sure that those fire code things are addressed. The existing safety in existing buildings, it's based on the code at the time of construction. There are some limited retrofit requirements in the fire code, but basically the building as it's built is what we maintain. But it does include things like fire protection, prevention practices, no smoking, storage of combustibles, storage of flammable liquids, those types of things, good housekeeping practices. Obviously, maintaining exits, keeping people from putting locks on exit doors so they can't be used, those types of things, maintaining the fire protection systems. There are some firefighter safety requirements in there so that shaftways are marked, trap doors are kept closed, pitfalls are things that are designed to injure a burglar, an intruder to the property. Well, if the firefighters are the intruders, we can't be injured by those types of things. And people have been known to put razor wire, not in our city, but in the country, people put razor wire underneath windows. They electrify a piece of chain link fence behind a window, those types of things to prevent people from coming in. So the code regulates those. It establishes, the International Fire Code sets some best practices for industry and insurance requirements so that people who are dealing with their insurance company, if they follow the fire code, their insurance companies are, it satisfies the requirements of insurance companies. Some of the significant changes in the 2015, one of the issues that the fire service community has long had concerns with is sky lanterns, the little candles that float off into the sky. And the fire code prohibits untethered sky lanterns. In other words, people would have to have some kind of fishing line or something to keep them from going, blowing into a building and creating a fire. The chemical smoke security, I'm not going to talk about all these, but the chemical smoke security alarms, what is happening in our country, people are installing security systems where if an intruder gets in the building, it sets off a smoke bomb, essentially, that obscures vision. Well, for the fire department, then people think the building's on fire, or if the fire department's there investigating something and we trigger this system, now the firefighters are lost inside a building with potentially a fire. So that type of security system is not allowed. Radio signal boosters as modern radio systems, and our county has moved to the state radio system, which is a very modern multifunction radio system, but the signals sometimes are weak in certain buildings. So it does require radio boosters for police, fire, and EMS so that if we're operating inside the building, we can stay in radio contact where we don't have radio signals blocked out. Reduced kitchen hood system requirements. There are places like perhaps a daycare center or a church where they have infrequent cooking, and they don't really need to go to all the expense of having a hood system and the fire extinguishing system that goes with it, maintaining that. So this code provides more instruction for the fire chief to use more discretion in when hood systems are required, and also the cleaning of commercial hood systems. The restaurant industry or the commercial hood cleaning people have come up with a standard to measure that better. It used to just be every 6 months you had to clean your hoods. There's a standard now that the industry has developed, and that's what would be used to make sure people clean their kitchen hoods. The requirement for fire alarm companies to notify the fire department when service is disconnected, the fire code requires fire alarms in certain occupancies, and when those fire alarms are required, if there's not somebody there to monitor it 24 hours a day, they have to subscribe to what's called a central station that monitors that alarm system and then calls the fire department and lets us know there's a fire. If somebody discontinues that service, the fire code now requires the alarm company to notify the fire department so we can go out there and make them restore that required protection. Carbon monoxide alarms in certain situations is very similar to the residential code and the building maintenance code that Jesse talked about. In existing buildings, basically, if there's the potential for carbon monoxide from a fuel furnace or hot water heater or an attached garage to leach its way into a living space, it would require a carbon monoxide alarm to be installed in motels, hotels, multifamily residences that are subject to the fire code. They can be in existing buildings battery powered to minimize that expense to people that have those. Reducing the amount of consumer fireworks stored or displayed inside a building. What the code, and the code is based a lot on experience, is finding that people sell fireworks seasonally inside buildings that have a sprinkler system, but the sprinkler system is not designed for that degree of hazard. And the building tends to burn down when they have a fire in it because the sprinkler system's inadequate. So it basically reduces the amount of fireworks that can be sold in a building. And also, for buildings that are fully protected by fire sprinkler systems, the code basically, that a fire sprinkler system cuts the water supply requirements in half. The code, but the minimum has always been 1,500 gallons per minute. In this code, now if the building's fully protected by a fire sprinkler system, the minimum fire flow required is only 1,000 gallons a minute. So that's recognizing the effectiveness of fire sprinklers. Now we are asking to adopt some new appendices that are in this 2015 code. Hazmat management plans, the hazmat inventory, that is a requirement of the current code. If you have over a certain amount of hazardous materials on your property, you have to have a plan to manage an accident involving that. The appendix strictly provides a model for how to create that plan. The fire protection system's non-compliant conditions, we view this as going to be valuable to us. It basically, we get reports from sprinkler companies saying, we inspected this property and there's problems with the sprinkler system. Well, where is it significant enough that we need to go out there and make sure people fix the problem? We don't want to be just, adding to the sales for the fire sprinkler contractor. So this appendix lists conditions where the fire department should take action and make sure things get fixed. So that provides some good guidance for us. Building information signs, this would be for new buildings, and it will allow for intelligent firefighting in the first couple of minutes when it's most important. But it would provide us, it would be a small sign that would be on the front of the building someplace that would be obvious to the fire department, and it would tell us about what type of construction is there, what fire protection systems are in the building, what occupancy the building was designed to be, the hazards of the contents, and special tactical considerations like impact-resistant drywall, impact-resistant glass, so that we don't we go in there knowing what we're dealing with better. And the firefighter air replenishment systems, we're asking you to adopt that as well. The ordinance that is in front of you, the appendix just says air replenishment systems are required. The ordinance in front of you sets where they are required. And basically it would be high-rise buildings. In the building code, basically 7-story buildings are high-rise buildings. We don't have any 7-story buildings except Weast Hall, which is coming down. And this would only be for new buildings, obviously, but it's a piped air system so the firefighters can plug their air pack in, refill their air without having to go back out. You know, if you're coming down 7 flights of stairs, that's a long walk to get some more air. The other part that's in the code, it just says, other unusual large buildings as determined by the fire chief. So if somebody built some large warehouse storage area, something like that, where the distance to get back to fresh air is going to be excessive, we might require an air supply system in those types of buildings. We aren't recommending the construction requirements for existing ambulatory care facilities because they're inspected by the state fire marshal. We don't do that. And we don't have any high-rise buildings to retroactively have fire sprinklers in. If we did, I would be here asking to do that. But now, in the local amendments, we have a number of existing amendments that we're not proposing any changes to that. One is the violations of the fire code are in line with our city code as far as code violations in the city code. And we've never gone to municipal court with anybody for a fire code violation. We get voluntary compliance. Operational permits that are in the code are not required. This would be somebody who wants to do hot work would have to come to the fire department and get a permit. If they want to use a fire hydrant, they have to come to the fire department to get a permit. We just don't have the resources to manage that, and I don't know that it's necessarily important. Building permits are required, but the operational permits are not. The Building Trades Board is the Fire Code Board of Appeals, is common with the building codes plus this code, and we've never taken an issue to the Building Trades Board in the 15 years I've been here. Limited temporary use of LPG so that people doing contractors doing work can have heaters or something that the fire chief can approve. Fireworks is basically what the commission has established over years, and additional open burning restrictions. The fire code basically says if you're going to have some kind of open burning, here's the rules. The city code puts some limits on that to avoid being a nuisance to your neighbor. We are proposing eliminating redundant hazmat restrictions. Back in 2006, when we adopted the fire code, we put in there where certain hazardous materials were not allowed to be in the city. That is all in the Unified Development Code, so we don't want to be duplicating that, and then makes it more complicated to keep the code up to date. So we're proposing to eliminate those because they're in the Unified Development Code. We have a Scribner error. It says 2 100-gallon LP containers, and it's actually supposed to be 2 100-pound LP containers. And reducing the distribution of fire code copies. Under the current code, we have to provide copies to the library, the city clerk's office, the city attorney's office, a number of places. Of course, now the code is available online, but quite frankly, it's very expensive buying all those copies of codes, and they sit in the clerk's office and they still have the plastic. Nobody ever comes in to ask. We have a checklist process, and when we're working with people, we have a checklist that just says in plain language what the code requires them to do so that they can understand the fire code. And I don't think so reducing the distribution of the fire codes, that's eliminated there. The one thing about the fire code is, especially with dealing with existing buildings, there are so many variables in existing buildings and how they're used. The code gives a tremendous amount of latitude to the fire chief to use common sense to apply the code with good judgment. The intent of the code is not to put people out of business or put them in the poorhouse. The intent of the code actually is, with existing buildings, is identify a hazard and then figure out what in the code can make that hazard better and work with the property operator to make those changes. The code allows me to modify the code, allow for alternative materials or methods to do things, as long as it meets the intent of the fire code. Matters not regulated by the code, I can bring in NFPA standards or ANSI standards or some other standard to say, here's how this would be best regulated. And again, it's judgment, what the reasonable fire chief does. But like I said, in 15 years, we've never had any real code compliance issues. Twice we've had the city attorney write letters to people, writing city attorney letters. But last year we inspected 500 buildings, over 800 inspections to inspect those 500 buildings. When you explain to people what the issue is and you work with them, we get voluntary compliance. We don't really have to do things. Fire protection classification for the city, we get rated, it's a small part of the rating, but it's a part of the rating that we get rated on our fire code enforcement. And our fire inspectors are nationally certified. They get certified through KU. We do have a good code enforcement program where we follow up and make sure hazards get corrected. But our fire code is so old that we're only going to get 10% credit for the fire code that we have. And we would like to get 100% credit by having the most recent code adopted. So, and this obviously does have some impact to fire insurance rates. I'm not telling you that if we don't adopt this code, everybody's rates are going to go up. It's a small portion of the whole rating, but it is important, and we should do that. So with that, I have questions for anyone.
Gary, I appreciate the presentation. I mean, to me, from what I'm hearing from you, it's a matter of safety for the community and being up to date, and I think it's the right thing to do. So, thank you for the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it, Chief.
All right, just a couple more slides for me. We'll wrap this agenda item up. So the various memos that you have on each individual code explain and provided details as to cost implications of adopting the new codes. It is likely that some codes will result in higher costs to the end consumer. However, some will result in cost savings. Most all codes are safety related, and safety, unfortunately, costs money. Trying to quantify these costs or put a price on safety related codes is difficult. The code does not recognize cost as an alternative to life safety, and the ratio of cost increase or decrease to an increase or decrease in life safety is not practical and really not even comprehensible. Please note that no one has come forward to our office that was concerned about the proposed code causing significant cost increases or concerns otherwise. This was discussed at the meetings of the Building Trades Board, and a favorable recommendation to move forward was still given. So tonight, basically, we presented three options for the City Commission to consider. One would be to approve the changes as proposed and recommended. Two, do not update the building codes as recommended. Or your third option, provide staff with other alternative direction. Staff, as well as the Building Trades Board, would recommend adopting the 2015 IBC, IRC, IFC, IEBC, and IPMC, and the 2014 NEC, with amendments as noted in the adoption ordinances, all to become effective July 1st of 2017. I do want to mention that one of the ordinances you have before you has two renditions available. That would be the IRC, one with the egress window local amendment proposed, one without. When staff is looking at these particular changes, we're looking at it from a safety standpoint, and we realize that you as commissioners have have to look at other areas as well. And so whichever option you choose to adopt, we will enforce whichever provision that you decide to move forward with. So should you decide to approve, this would be the action requested. And now I take any questions you might have of me.
I would move that we approve the ordinances adopting the 2015 IBC, IRC, IFC, IEBC, and IPMC, and the 2014 NEC, with amendments as noted, with the exception of local amendments to section R310.6 in the IRC, to become effective July 1st, 2017.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Myers, second by Commissioner Jones.
So this does not have the local amendment for the egress windows.
And so what you're saying, we would have egress windows for all new development?
No, it would be the requirements that are already in the code, which means that if you add a bedroom to an
Right.
existing home, you add an egress window for that bedroom.
Jesse, I asked the question this week, and I don't hope I wasn't the only one, but I really appreciate the time whoever put into giving me more information about the egress windows. I did leave confused last week, and I reached out, and whoever put that memo together was very good. Thank you. It allowed me to make a better
Sure,
decision.
yeah, I had some staff assist with that, so hopefully it was
Appreciate it.
helpful.
It was.
All right.
I just want to say that I really appreciate all the time that you guys have put into this, not just the update on the egress windows, but I mean this entire presentation and going through the different, you and the fire chief for putting all of this together. I really appreciate it. I know that we kind of make jokes about, it being kind of boring, and I'm not going to say that it's super exciting, but but it's interesting. But it's interesting, and I'm glad that you guys did that, because I've been able to learn so much from what you guys have presented, and also going through all the local amendments that you presented. I know that we as a commission kind of had a hang up on this one, but I think it's important to point out all the other local amendments that you guys have proposed, and the vast majority of them are to either do what we've already been doing or to dial back what you thought were onerous codes that we shouldn't have to comply with, like the energy requirements and things like that. So I don't want the focus to be just on this one thing. I want the focus to be on the 25 plus local amendments that you guys proposed that are good amendments that are going to keep costs down and make it easier to build. So thank you for doing that.
Sure, appreciate that.
And the same goes for the Trades Board, and I think they put a tremendous amount of work, as I mentioned earlier. I think between the Planning Commission and the Trades Board, I don't think our citizens realize how much work goes in on those two boards.
Right.
So we really do appreciate that. I learned so much in this, and interestingly, I was able to answer some questions in the community just because of the presentation, so I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, and go ahead. Not only are they interesting, it's important. I feel like it's important to have the presentations that you guys gave to us and the documentation in front of us, so we can make an informed decision. And I know a lot of staff time, a lot of time went into doing that, and we greatly appreciate it. The whole commission does. So, thank you.
Sure.
I'm just really, and I feel like I need to apologize to the staff members that the full commission can't be here to listen to this presentation. I wish that the full commission could be here to see all the great work that you guys have done, especially since the person who's missing seemed to have some very strong feelings about it, but didn't really see the necessity to show up tonight. So I really apologize to the city staff for that, but really appreciate the work that you guys have put into it.
No doubt. I mean, I know you guys put a lot of time into this, and I know we added some time to you guys when we asked for more information, but I kind of feel like that's our job to be informed. That way when we talk to the residents, we can, answer them, and you guys have been a great help to us, so I appreciate that. The question I have on your motion, from my understanding, there's do we need 4 different?
As long as the city attorney's okay with adopting it en masse.
Yeah, I think that'd be fine.
You okay with
Yep.
doing it in mass?
Yep.
So, okay, if you guys are all right with that? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
I-
Opposed, nay. Passes 4-0. I think I said 5-0 earlier. I forgot. There's only 4.
Correcting the record.
Okay.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you, Chief Brown.
Chief, thank you. Got somebody else paying attention. Next on the agenda would be employee residency requirements.
Mayor and Commissioners, I'm Jacob Wood, Assistant City Manager. I'm going to try and keep this under 45 minutes for you. The last guy couldn't, but we will. I'm here to discuss employee residency
Actually more
requirements.
important, so.
He could have gotten started a lot quicker if somebody would have given a maybe more succinct financial report.
That's probably true. Anyway.
That's bad. Just
I'm
bad.
here to talk about the employee residency requirements. First, I'll give you a highlight of what our current policy looks like. The city manager, assistant city manager, and all department directors are required to live within the city limits. All public safety employees have to live within the 3-mile planning boundary, and then all other employees are required to live within the county. And I'll just show you here, this is the 3-mile planning district, so these are the city limits. And this is the 3-mile planning district, so this is where public safety employees are required to live. And then this is Ellis County. So the rest of employees outside of department directors and the public safety employees have to live within Ellis County. The proposed policy change, first we wouldn't change anything about the city manager, assistant city manager, and department directors. But we would request that you allow the city manager to determine a residency requirement for the rest of employees based on response time. And that would be based on the different types of positions and the necessity for those positions to respond back to the city. So we had discussed doing a 30 or 40-minute response time, and this is what that would look like. So this is Ellis County. This is a 30-minute response time, and this is a 40-minute response time, and these are approximate. The anticipated benefits of this change, first, it's really about recruitment. Having a wider area would produce a larger applicant pool. It would bring Hayes into line with some other communities that we're competing with for employees like Salina, Newton, Hutchinson, and Derby. It's also about retention. We have had employees in the past who have left the organization and said if they could stay with the organization but move to a smaller community close to Hayes, that they would stay with the organization. I'll just give you a highlight. The police department has an average of 3 vacant positions at any given time. This has been the standard for the last 2 or 3 years. And communications is typically down 1 position. So right now, the crux of this, the reason that we're bringing this forward is for police and communications. Those are the areas that we struggle with right now. But I will say that we have had issues in the past, depending on how the oil field is doing. We have had issues hiring maintenance workers, plant operators. We also have issues hiring highly skilled positions and mid-level employees. At the work session, the commission asked that we present a revision that would kind of single out the police and communications department, and this is what that revision would look like. So once again, we would leave the city manager, assistant city manager, department directors the same. The employees from the fire department would be required to live within the 3-mile planning district, which is where they are currently required to live. And then all employees of the police department and communications department would live within a 30 or 40-minute response time, and we put 40 minutes in the ordinance that's in your packet. All other employees not mentioned would still be required to live within Ellis County. So the options that you have is you can approve an ordinance that would give the city manager authority to determine the residency requirements. You could approve an ordinance that would allow the police and communications departments to live within a specified response time, provide further guidance, or do nothing. And the city staff is recommending that you would approve an ordinance that would require, or that would amend the employee residency requirement to allow the city manager to determine those requirements. And I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
I would move that we, is that it there?
It's 3935 is the one we
Oh,
recommend.
okay, so I would move that we approve ordinance number 3935, amending the residency requirement to allow the city manager to determine requirements based on response times.
I'll second that.
A motion by Commissioner Myers, second by Commissioner Jacobs. I wasn't here last week, so I guess I'll probably ask some questions you guys already did, but I really don't have a problem. I mean, you guys know city manager, assistant city manager is what we need. And anytime you drive around this town, there's people from 30, 40 miles out all the time. My wife's a school teacher, and there's people who drive as far as Phillipsburg to Hayes, for many years. And to me, open up the pool is, that's just common sense to do that.
And we don't expect this to be a dramatic change. With the requirements that we have right now, we have 19 employees out of 181 that live outside of the city. We don't expect it to be dramatic. We don't think everybody's going to live outside the city or move right away. But we do want to compete. If we can do 1 or 2 employees here and there in the police department, that's farther ahead than we are today.
I'm sure it's not dramatic, but I did talk to one of the spouses of a current city police officer, and they're trying to buy a home, and they've been having trouble buying a home, and they just said they could have a lot better time if they could buy something in Victoria or Ellis. So I think this is good. If we can retain people, even if it doesn't bring anybody in, I think that's good.
And I think it's really important to stay competitive with areas around us. If they can do it in other areas, we should be able to do it as well. And I know it's difficult for Chief Scheibler. We've had that conversation before, and if this aids in him being able to get a better pool, I'm all for it.
On the variation you showed up on the screen, that was the first time I'd seen that. Maybe I missed something, but it looked like the fire department was going to stay within the 3-mile area. And as it is, the city manager can change that at any time.
Yeah, there should be a clarification that the motion, it doesn't include any of those revisions. The city manager
Right.
has the
Yeah.
authority to make that decision
Right.
at his determination.
Right, and we don't anticipate we'll make any changes for the fire department simply based on that they have to be back immediately for their job. So there probably won't be any change. If there are, there'll be minor changes. We may change something, right now, we're based on the ETJ, and if that changes, that's kind of a moving target. So we may kind of clarify that, but I wouldn't anticipate we're not going to allow firefighters to live 40 minutes away from the community. We just can't do that.
I appreciate knowing that, but I think the important part of this whole thing is that the city manager has the ability to do that, and I think that was our goal.
Well, and I think it's important to point out that the person who thought that they were giving up their authority chose not to be here tonight. So if you choose not to be here tonight, then I guess you don't get a say.
I would say that the only thing that I have against this is, as presented, is that previously the commission has set the requirement, and we are giving that up to one person to run the city manager. So I would have rather, I'm for the thing, I'm going to vote yes for it, but I would have rather seen it broke down as the way it was, that these are the restriction and the commission comes up with that rather than city manager. But I'm okay with it. I think it needs to happen for recruitment purposes and for, it's expensive to live inside of Hayes. But the way that we're funded, people who live in Victoria or Ellis are gonna, especially if they work here, they're gonna come here and we're gonna get their sales tax.
Right.
So,
That's exactly right.
Commissioner Jones, I agree with what you're saying to a point, but I don't feel like any of us have the firsthand knowledge on what you guys need for employees. I mean, you're the one we hire and fire and stuff, and I just don't feel like us having the ability to decide, where they're from. To me, it makes no sense, because I have a regular full-time job, and I wouldn't have time on a daily basis to, if this person should live in Hayes or Stockton or whatever, so I personally have a problem with it.
And I agree with Mayor Mutual. I have a full part-time job. So, but we rely on staff for everything. We really respect the job Toby does as city manager and you do as assistant city manager and all the departments head, so.
yeah, I do agree with that. I'm not trying to throw a fit about it. I just think that we're going from a policy that the commission set to giving it to the city manager. So it's something that we need to really look at and make sure we don't do that frequently.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
I think that's fair.
It's like every year, we've changed our economic policy, I think at least 4 times since I've been on the commission, so we can always change this. If we see you getting out of hand, we can always take it away from you.
Yeah, it doesn't take-
Somebody's got to watch him.
I know.
Like a hawk.
If there's nothing else, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
And it passes 4-0. Thank you, Jacob. Next item on the agenda, water treatment plant CO2 replacement design agreement, page 2.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Jeff Chrisman, Interim Director of Water Resources. This project is to enter into a design agreement to properly design a new tank location, feed system, and process piping to properly feed carbon dioxide, or as the rest of the presentation, I'll just refer to it as CO2, as part of our water softening process. This is a picture of our current 6-ton CO2 tank at the water treatment plant on Vine. A question was asked last week at the work session about what CO2 does as part of the water softening process. And the short answer is that the pH of the water, when we add lime as part of the softening process, the pH of the water is increased during that softening process, and to bring it back down to safe levels, when we send water out to distribution, CO2 is used to lower that back down. This is the plate on the outside of that tank. The current tank is 49 years old. That doesn't mean we've had it for 49 years. All the parts on it are old, as well as our feeding system. Manufactured in 1968. It was refurbished and installed at our plant at 2005. It has had 6 repairs that we've notated over the last 5 years, and that's been about $1,500 in repairs. A new larger tank would save us money on transportation costs. The cost of CO2 doesn't really change too much, but where they get us in cost is that transportation cost and then a hazmat fee that you pay every single time that it's being delivered to the plant. So you take those hazmat fees and transportation fees, and you add that to the repairs. Roughly, we would be saving somewhere in the range of $3,000 to $5,000 a year is what we would save in those deliveries alone. Like I said, the cost of CO2 roughly about $207 per ton. We use around 100 tons per year. Larger tank would decrease our deliveries down from 23 a year to around 4. So we would decrease a lot. A 30-ton tank would allow us to take a full load. So that would help us in the bidding process. Right now, our situation is we don't have a lot of companies that'll bid for us because they have to make multiple stops. They would rather actually deliver us a full load. So that would help us out quite a bit in potential savings. Right here, this is a picture of our current tank. It is right next to our unloading dock. That's our freight elevator. A new larger tank would actually not fit there, wouldn't fit there at all. We unload our pallets of dry goods, send it up to the 3rd floor, and that's where we feed our dry chemicals on our 3rd floor. This is the inside of the mechanisms that go to that 6-ton tank. Pretty old, worn-out parts in there. As you can see, the wear on the tank. Obviously, there is going to be some wear. The outside of the tank, pretty much normal wear and tear for something that's been there since 2005. The feed equipment, we have 2 feeders that are in the plant. That's on our 2nd floor. If you've ever been into our water plant, there are 2 of them, and it's kind of deceiving because those are cases that are around the feeders. The equipment in it is pretty small. One of them was installed in 1973, and that one is 44 years old. The other one was installed in 1994, 23 years old. Pretty obsolete parts, really hard to find parts for them. New equipment is actually relatively inexpensive, but you can order new equipment, but as far as replacing the parts that we have right now, they are obsolete, and we kind of have to try to piece things together to make things work. This is what we're currently set up at from a Google Earth shot. Right down here, that's our current tank. It feeds CO2 into the building, into the 2nd floor where those feeders were, mixes CO2 with water, then it pumps it back outside around the primaries, over to our secondaries. Water that comes from that secondary feeds and it's diffused in here, and that's where the water and the CO2 mixes together. And then the water actually goes back into our final filters and then gets pumped back out into distribution. As part of this, as part of the process, this is a previous progress report picture of some of the things that are going on at the water plant. A lot of piping underground, and as part of this design agreement, what's really important is design services are critical to ensure proper selection of obviously equipment, new tank, feed systems, layout design, due to the nature of older structures and what is currently underground all over the plant. We want to make sure we're obviously careful, anybody that is digging around out there at our plant. As part of the design of the project, our goal is to add this 30-ton tank to the north side. That's where our recommendation would be, but our design agreement would help us select the best location for that. Out by the secondary, so it would be in this location, and I'll have a picture that'll kind of show it a little bit better where it would go. So it would actually feed the CO2 from a 30-ton tank into the same location, and it would be diffused right there at the same location as it currently is now. It would eliminate the need to have CO2 pumped around that, and kind of eliminate that mess, and we would still be feeding it at the same location, but it would work out a lot better for our process. The other thing that I failed to mention last week is the delivery system right now. It would help quite a bit because we have a full access road to where it would be a lot safer for plant. You know, it's a dangerous gas. It's a dangerous situation, and not being right by our lab would help us quite a bit there too. So the one other benefit about having a larger tank is you don't have the situation where you could potentially run out of CO2. 6 tons versus 30 tons gives us an opportunity to make sure that we wouldn't have a situation where we would run out. This is the proposed location. The tank would actually sit we would have this part of this area would be cut out like a retaining wall. The 30-ton tank would sit right here, and the feed system would go through that wall. The 2 feeders would be located in that location, and that's where it would be diffused and added to the water. As part of this design agreement, when we sent the RFP out, this is the scope of design services. Site design for a new 30-ton CO2 tank. Structural design for concrete foundation pad and/or supports for a new CO2 storage tank. Assistance with determining a location of new CO2 feed equipment. Electrical design for power supply to new CO2 storage tank and feed equipment. Assistance with determining acceptable CO2 storage tank manufacturers and manufacturers of CO2 feed equipment to generate carbonic acid. Plans and specifications for a single construction contract for the new CO2 storage tank, CO2 feed equipment, site work, process piping, structural, electrical, and related details. And finally, assisting with the bid process. Obviously, as I said last week, if we have notice to proceed tonight, the bid award would go to the company that is ready and willing to take this to the next section, or the next phase of design. We opened bids on April the 18th. We had 2 companies that submitted bids out of 6 that were sent to. Bartlett and West was the low bid. Bartlett and West out of Topeka at $28,000. Burns and McDonald also had a range of $50,000 to $75,000. Commissioner Jacobs, you had asked last week why the differences in those proposals, and as I'd answered, both of those companies submitted proposals that met the design requirements of the RFP. They both met them. I just felt that staff felt that it was a more competitive bid, and they have done multiple projects for the city of Hayes in the past as it relates to water. So we feel very comfortable with the work that they've completed, and they are ready to proceed as I stated. Financial considerations for 2017, $300,000 was budgeted for the total project. So $28,000 would go towards the total project in water capital reserves for the water treatment plant CO2 systems project. Have 3 options before you tonight. 1, to accept the proposal from Bartlett and West for design services for the water treatment plant CO2 project, not to exceed $28,000 to be funded out of water capital. 2, provide alternate direction to city staff, or 3, do nothing. Staff recommends accepting the proposal from Bartlett and West for design services for the water treatment plant CO2 systems project, not to exceed $28,000 to be funded out of water capital. And that is your action if you choose to move it on tonight, and I will take any questions you may have.
I'll make a motion to authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement with Bartlett and West for design services for the water treatment plant CO2 system project to be funded out of water capital reserves.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Jacobs. The $28,000 is just for the design, that's not for the tank.
No, and you were not here last week, Mayor Musil. The question came up about the tank. In 2014, this is a project that had been looked at before. And in 2014, we received a quote for a 30-ton tank. And I had asked our water plant superintendent, who couldn't be with us tonight, he was here last week, to go back out to that company and ask if that price was still good. The price that they quoted us was $80,000. It was still a good price. That actually is a very reasonable price because that's the biggest expense. The feed equipment, the feeders, the redundant feeders are very reasonable. I feel very confident that the $300,000 is within the range.
Question I have on the being so close to the water, is there any concern, like if something would happen, there'd be a leak with it being so close to the actual?
The way it precipitates in the water, there's no issue with that. It's safer as far as not being as close to the building.
Right.
And as far as how it's fed around the building, we're not in the way of all the other piping and the structures. But as far as being as close to the water, no, there's no issue there.
But where you're suggesting it could be changed by the design.
It could be. That's just a recommendation that city staff is recommending.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
It's really interesting when I know it was many years ago, why they put it so far away. Maybe it's because it was closest to the highway or something, the original where it's at now.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for you for tonight on why it was placed where it was. I know that since even before 2005, that is the location. The refurbished unit that was put there in 2005, that was the original location of the other CO2. So, but that's a great location for a smaller tank, but a larger tank will not fit due to deliveries. Any other questions?
Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. This is 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Next item on the, next item on the agenda, Main Street Sewer Trenchless Method Repair.
Okay, again, Mayor and Commissioners, Jeff Crispin, Interim Director of Water Resources. Our second presentation tonight. In 2015, as part of our sewer line cleaning and inspection program, Mayor's Specialty Services notated multiple deficiencies along Main Street. Most of the problem areas were fixed in 2016. The last remaining area that needs to be repaired and replaced is this project on Main Street between 9th and 10th Street, running under the railroad tracks. And on this picture, the green line represents the actual sewer line, and the directional arrow represents the fact that the sewer line, the sewer flow is from north to south. I will bring up another picture towards the end of the presentation that's very similar. This is the one of the manholes, and this location would be the far south of this project. The area on this overhead shot here, the area in red is approximately 200 feet. This is the area of this project, the area that needs to be replaced. Like I said, approximately 200 feet. There's a manhole on 10th Street that's located right here. This is very, very close to the Union Pacific Park. That is located right there, and then it flows south, and there is a manhole on 9th Street. The flow runs, like I said, north to the south. Due to the depth of the sewer line and the location under the railroad tracks, staff has chosen to seek a trenchless method repair, which is sometimes referred to as pipe bursting. And on the next slide, I will explain this in a little bit more detail. In a situation such as this, like I said, where we have railroad tracks and we cannot dig a full-length trench, a 200-foot trench to replace pipe, we could choose to do pipe bursting, and we've chosen to do pipe bursting versus pipe lining. This is a definition from International Pipe Bursting Association. Pipe bursting is a breaking of existing pipe, expanding the broken pipe into the surrounding soil while simultaneously pulling the new factory pipe, manufactured pipe. This was developed in the 70s as a trenchless method repair, and it's been used in the gas industry, water, sewer, telecommunications, and electrical industry. And basically, to give you kind of an idea of how this would work, if this was this is the Main Street, this would be the manhole on 9th Street. This would be the manhole on 10th Street. Now, what I will say, when we say trenchless repair, it is trenchless repair from here to here. You do have a trench, which would be located here at this manhole, and a trench that would be located in this manhole. The reason why pipe bursting is a recommended method is because due to the condition of the pipe, there are laterals on this pipe that have broken, and there is still flow in there, but there are parts of the pipe that have been broken, and we see that on camera, so it makes it a very great candidate for this method of repair. There will be, like I said, there will be two trenches on the upstream and downstream manhole, and both will have full trench boxes in place per OSHA guidelines by the contractor. I want to talk quickly about diverting flow. As you can see here, this is the furniture store on Main Street. There is a manhole that is located right here where this star is. Flow would have to be stopped. We would have to plug the line right here as part of this project and divert, pump flow over to a manhole that is just off screen behind Tobin here. That would be where flow would be diverted. This is that very same manhole, and this kind of shows where that line runs along Main Street. But this area, basically, this would be a surrounded manhole. There would not be any excavation, and it would be pumped over to another manhole. So that would be an area that would actually be surrounded by caution cones. This picture is the entire area. As I said, I would be coming back to another picture. This is the manhole in the 10th Street area pointing towards the south. This is that other picture of the 9th Street area pointing towards the north. If you give authorization to proceed with this project tonight, staff will coordinate with the contractor, DHDC, and Hayes Police Department to minimize issues during the work. I will stress, though, that safety is the #1 priority for all, and all precautions will be addressed. We will address any calendar issues with downtown. It is hard to, at this point, until we have notice to proceed, we will work with the contractor after notice to proceed, but we've already looked at the calendar to minimize any disruptions based on the calendar for downtown. We sent a request for proposals out to 11 companies. We had 2 bids that came back on May 2nd. We received one from APAC of Hayes at $98,253.38. We also received one back from Nowak Construction Company out of Goddard, Kansas at $111,437. Financial consideration for 2017, we have $420,000 that is budgeted in capital maintenance. Funding for this project will come from capital reserves. You have 3 options for you tonight. We have 3 options for you tonight. 1, accept the proposal from APAC of Hayes, Kansas for the trenchless repair of Main Street sewer between 9th and 10th Street not to exceed $98,253.38 to be funded from capital reserves. 2, provide alternative direction. Or 3, do nothing. Our recommendation, staff recommends accepting the proposal from APAC of Hayes, Kansas for trenchless repair of Main Street sewer between 9th and 10th not to exceed $98,253.38 to be funded from capital reserves. And this is the action requested if you choose to move it forward. And I just hit the wrong button. And I will stand for any questions.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move we authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement with APAC of Hayes, Kansas for the trenchless repair of Main Street sewer between 9th and 10th Street not to exceed $98,253.38 to be funded from capital reserves.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Jacobs, second by Commissioner Jones. Have we used this sort of procedure before in Hayes?
We have not used this exact procedure before, but APAC of Hayes has used it before. APAC of Kansas has used this before. This is something that is well known to be used. It has been called different things. Pipe bursting is not a patented, I've done some research in this last week. It is something that's not, you can call it pipe bursting, there's different things that it's called. The city of Hayes, we've used cured in place, or CIPP, cured in place pipe before on some different projects that doesn't seem to work as well as this may work, because cured in place pipe is where you pull through a flexible line and then it gets blown up.
Oh, yeah.
As far as steam is pumped in and then it cures in place. Right. That sometimes doesn't work as well, and we feel like this is the best option in this case. Plus, we're not going to be in the railroad right away.
Right. Well, I think it's a good idea. You know, we've really doubled down the last few years on our infrastructure. This is just another part of that, so.
Jeff, didn't you say last week, and I might be on another subject, but that we hoped it wouldn't be, the street wouldn't be closed longer than a couple days?
Well,
Hopefully.
I can't, until we get notice to proceed, the problem is I can't, APAC can't put it on their schedule.
I see.
You know, so if I get notice to proceed, then the contractor could schedule it. I'm sure that we could work through those things, but they feel basically within, for sure, over 5 days, but I think a couple days it could be done pretty quickly.
I appreciate you staying so close to that, because we do have an awful lot of activities
Yeah,
going on this summer in
that
downtown.
That is absolutely a huge concern for us for minimizing any efforts down there, but until you open up an area and you put a trench box in it, you don't know what, we can't walk down there and say, okay, this is exactly what it's going to be, because as I mentioned last week, if you put a trench box in, you don't really want vehicles driving right next to it. So
Thank
you want to
you.
be cautious.
What's the material that they're using on that pipe, that it's flexible but yet sturdy enough?
It's not necessarily your normal PVC. It's like P9000. I don't know the exact term of it tonight, but it basically, as a winch, it'll pull it through. It'll pull it right through, and as it goes, it just breaks up the other and pushes it out and replaces it right through it. It is very slick.
So have we had many issues in this area, I mean, recently?
There has been some issues. There's some areas of town that are good candidates for this when you can't actually expose the whole pipe.
So potentially, if this works out, we may use it.
We very well could, absolutely.
Hope it works. Anything else? Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
This is 4-0. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, Heart of America, the second edition, 9th Street awarded bid.
All right, Jesse Rohr, Planning Inspection Enforcement Superintendent again. For this item, we're actually requesting an award of bid to APAC for East 9th Street infrastructure extensions. The property itself is located just east of Commerce Parkway, north of the railroad. You'll see in the highlighted circle here. 9th Street itself runs between the Army Reserve Center and Glassman Corporation, just off to the east side of Commerce Parkway. In this picture, you can also see the 3 platted lots that were approved in 2016. Here would be Glassman Corporation, the Army Reserve Center, and then lots 1, 2, and 3. Here's a short piece of improved 9th Street. The extended area would be in this area right here. This property is owned by, and the project was initiated by, the Heart of America Development Corporation. The project started in 2016 and is nearing the construction phase of the project, pending City Commission approval tonight. The bid includes approximately 780 feet of street, water, and sanitary sewer. There's also about 80 feet of a stormwater pipe or structure at a crossing underneath of 9th Street. A total of 7 bids were received, with APAC being the lowest bid, and was approximately $150,000 below the engineer's estimate. The developer will pay 30% upfront at the time of award of bid. The remaining 70% will be assessed per the special benefit district that was approved by the City Commission in late 2016. There is no city share in funds for this particular project. So your options tonight would be to award the bid as recommended. You could, if you choose to award to a non-recommended bidder, reject all bids, or provide alternate direction to staff. Staff's recommendation would be to allow the city manager to enter into a contract with the low bidder, APAC, as presented. With that, I would take any questions you might have.
I'll make a motion to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with APAC for the construction of street, water, stormwater, and sanitary sewer improvements within the Heart of America second edition.
Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Myers.
So, same question as last week. These bids were sent out before or after the award of bid for 8th Street,
I believe they were after the A Street bids.
and I think it shows in the bids.
That's right.
Well, one thing that I noticed is, you had up to a little bit ago, I mean, there's 5 local bidders up there, and
Yeah.
that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
It's
Right,
nice.
yeah, we were pleased with the number of bids. It's not common to get this many bids for a particular
Yeah.
project in our area.
I think that's a good thing. You got, I mean, I know some of them aren't directly in Hayes, but they got a lot of local employees, so it's good to see. Anything else on that, guys?
So you're saying we should have had an asphalt?
Somebody, just to add, somebody has to agitate.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Next item on the agenda, Allen Street reconstruction design contract, shut him down.
We have a motion to censor the city manager.
We just did.
Okay, well, I'm going to continue on. I'm standing in for John Brown tonight, who couldn't be with us here this evening. So for this item, the Allen Street Reconstruction Design Engineering Agreement, the capital improvement plan within the 2017 and 18 budget includes a project to reconstruct Allen Street from 8th Street to Vine Street. To complete construction in 2018, it is necessary to begin engineering design at this time. Staff has solicited proposals from qualified engineering firms to prepare plans for the reconstruction project. The lowest cost proposal was presented by Kirkham Michael and Associates of Ellsworth, Kansas, at a cost of $74,900. Following the reconstruction of 8th Street, which is currently underway, the next priority major reconstruction project is Allen Street from 8th Street to where it intersects with Vine at 24th Street here at the north end. Allen Street is functionally classified as a major collector road, which carries between 2,000 and 4,000 vehicles per day throughout the 5,100 lineal foot extent of the proposed project. It is a 2-lane road with parking along the west side, no parking on the east side. Existing pavement varies From brick at the south end, asphalt through the center section, and concrete at the north end. The cross-section width and sidewalk configuration varies as well from one end of the project to the other. The intent of the project is to replace the pavement throughout the project, with the possible exception of some of the brick pavement between 8th and 12th Street, and also replace any failed curb and gutter and correct any ADA issues. The project also includes the upgrade and replacement of the water main and services north of 10th Street during the reconstruction project. This particular project is in the capital improvement plan of the 2017 budget for construction in 2018. It has an estimated total project cost of $4 million. Staff solicited fee-based proposals from engineering firms for design services, and on April 25th, received proposals from 4 engineering firms. Kirkham Michael and Associates of Ellsworth presented the lowest cost proposal at the cost of $74,900. The scope of services includes engineering design of the project through bid letting, pre-construction meetings and review of contractor submittals. Inspection of the project is to be completed in-house, as A Street is currently being done now. Additional technical services during construction, if necessary, would be additional work or be done under separate contract. This project has a budgetary cost estimate of $4 million to be funded out of City Commission reserves. An additional $500,000 will be needed out of water capital to upgrade water services along Allen Street. The $74,900 cost of design engineering is included in the $4 million estimate and would be paid out of Commission capital reserves. The current design schedule calls for a bid opening in December of 2017, with construction during the 2018 construction season. So with this item, your options as presented are to, 1, authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement with Kirkham Michael and Associates for engineering services, provide alternate direction, or do nothing. Staff would recommend to the City Commission to authorize the city manager to enter into said agreement. I don't take any questions.
I'd move that we authorize the city manager to enter an agreement with Kirkham Michael and Associates in the amount of $74,900 for engineering services related to the design of the reconstruction of Allen Street from 8th to Vine to be funded from Commission capital reserves.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Myers, second by Commissioner Jones. Does it kind of throw up a red flag on, I mean, it's great that they're so much lower, but there's a huge difference. Maybe you guys asked this last week on the bids.
Right. We did go through the bids, and they provide the full scope of services as was asked for. When asked, I know last week we asked, and John Brown presented last week, guessing just workload probably was the main cause of the big variance in bids. I will mention that Kirkham Michael, they are a national firm. They have a remote office in Ellsworth as well as a couple other offices in the state of Kansas. There's actually a couple of former KDOT engineers from the local area that actually work in the Ellsworth office, as well as one of our former inspectors here with the City of Hayes. So we're familiar with the staff, familiar with the firm. And
So have they done any work for us recently, or?
they've done local bridge inspections for us. They have bid other projects. Just weren't fortunate enough to be awarded those projects based on their bids, but definitely have no issue with them as a potential client.
So I guess I have a question for the commission, because this smart guy besides me here. Are we just wanting to go concrete all the way on this, or asphalt, or I mean, is that kind of, we just concrete?
Brick?
I don't want to put brick back, no.
So we're not gonna put brick back where it's
I think
at?
we're looking at.
Nobody wants to put brick back but me?
I do, no, I'll go for brick.
Oh, thank you.
If it's already there, it might be all right. I think that that's why we're doing this, is that the engineer's
That'll be one of the
gonna-
alternates in the
yeah.
design,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
And you'll see this again and have opportunity for discussion and action at that.
I don't think that this is a place or time
No,
where we just, you know,
right.
that's why we're.
But I was just curious, because I mean, I know we did do concrete.
Right, and our intention as far as an overall pavement type is to go with concrete. I mean, unless we can find some fatal flaw in what we're doing that we think would lead to, you know, prematurely failing concrete in the future, we're assuming we're gonna find that the standards and practice have changed enough that we can insulate ourselves from the problems of the past. And given the commission's preference for concrete, we have no problem just doing the concrete, because we don't want to dilute the bidding pool
Right.
by doing two if the commission has no taste for asphalt and they would rather do concrete, and we feel like we're getting better bids with concrete.
I don't know that it's not a taste, it's just we only have one asphalt mixing plant in town. The bids are not going to be competitive like they're going to be with concrete.
Yeah.
And we've already seen several examples of that tonight, what competitive bidding does for us. So
I guess me personally, I don't lean towards either way, but
I don't
it is
either.
nice to have, different bids.
Yeah.
Instead of just one. So.
Because Commissioner Jones always likes to say he doesn't want brick, I use every opportunity to say, I love brick.
I do too.
I don't mind.
In the appropriate places.
That's right.
I'm not anti-brick, I just think that it should be kept within the downtown area, and there's no, to me, that's too far out. Like, I like to preserve history, and
Right.
brick streets are part of our history, but I don't like driving on them, and
We've learned that.
or one-way streets.
Well, I will say,
And 7th Street's the worst street in town because it's brick in one way.
is anybody
You know,
thinking what
the-
I'm thinking? Overnight we brick.
Right.
Jones's
Yeah,
driveway.
his driveway. I'm in. In all the fun that's going on here, I really want to make another statement that as the newest sitting commissioner, it just tickles me to death when you put up that the money's going to come out of reserves. To pay $4 million cash for a street just makes me feel good about the management of this city and how this commission and other commissioners and the city manager take care of the money of this community. I think it's really, really important.
And that was actually one of the things I was going to ask, is when this comes back, when the engineering's done and then we're presented with the alternatives and everything, I think I'd really like to have an update on city commission capital reserves, where we're at
Oh,
with
good
the
idea.
fund, what we're looking for in the future. Because we've focused on 8th and now Allen, and so I would be interested in where are we going to spend that money in the future, where we're at with the reserves.
Yeah, and I believe with the budget we're preparing now, we're looking at 43rd, 45th is the next identifiable project, but we'll have all that back.
Very good. Very good.
I know I've driven that road a lot lately with my little side job, and that is a very rough road. And now with the added traffic with 8th Street, I think it'd be interesting how it ends up after this summer. So I think it's something definitely needed. Did we vote?
No.
I don't know. Okay.
No.
Sorry. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 4.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Jesse.
Jesse.
Thank you, Jesse.
Next item on the agenda, Taxiway India. Award of bid and grant application.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Ovid Seifers, Public Works Airport Division. Taxiway I reconstruction, award of bid, May 25th, 2017. All this taxiway is in the general aviation hangar area. There's no taxiway or runway involvement in this project. Background, the only asphalt taxiway on the airport remaining is this area. Has severe drainage problems, asphalt has failed and is failing. Gives you a depiction of the hangar area, it's hangar area only. It's all on the back side primarily, and a little bit on the south end there. Has two portions or pieces in there. It has a base bid, an alternate 1, alternate 2. Base bid is fundable through Airport Improvement Project or a program. And alternate 1 and alternate 2 will have to be borne solely by the city of Hayes. FAA will not participate in those two portions.
So I thought they said last week that FAA would pay for alternate 2, just not alternate 1.
Depends on their money right now. Well, 1's out without question. 2 is most likely going to fly, but it's not 100%.
This is 1 and 2, alternates 1 and 2.
Oh, that's what they're paying for.
I wasn't here last week, so Jacob would have.
Yeah, I believe John said that alternate 2 would be
Would-
funded by the FAA.
Yeah.
They just won't hear about alternate 1. We've tried and tried and tried, and it's gone nowhere. So. Base bid, north end there. One hangar will be separated from its aircraft during that project. It's hangar H4 on the north. There's no other way to do it. That hangar has one of the larger planes on Hayes Airport, and that belongs to Plane Masters, Cessna Caravan that does UPS back and forth to Wichita. Alternate one, that corner down there on the curve, that's solely borne by the city and will not be any participation by the FAA, not at all. Alternate two, the FAA will participate. It's not a total replacement there. That's similar to Highway 40 where you're doing slab repair and replacement. Bid tabulation. Base bid, Paul Wertenberger Company, $370,324. Low bid, considerably. Alternate one, two bids almost on each other, but Paul Wertenberger still was low bid. Alternate two, the smallest piece of it, $29,580. Low bid, however, was Smoky Hill at $21,582. Smoky Hill did the runway 1634 reconstruction 4 years back. Total bid, Paul Wertenberger, $471,592. Low bid by a considerable amount. Breakdown city share, base bid $37,032.40. FAA $333,291.60. Alternate one $71,688. City share $71,688 because no FAA participation. Alternate two, total $29,580. City share $29,058. FAA $26,622. Total city share on the project will be $111,678.40, and the FAA will pay $359,913.60. Design was done by Burns McDonald. Total design was $77,030. City share will be $77,003. FAA paying $69,327, 90%. Inspection oversight. Total $93,100. City share $93,10. FAA share $83,790. Get 10 and 90. Administration charges $3,500. City share $350 and FAA $3,150. Total project cost: design, inspection, admin, and construction $645,222. City share $129,041.40. FAA $516,180.60. Again, standards sharing. Some questions on the Airport Improvement Fund. Balance in 2016, 498. Pardon my eyesight on this.
Yeah, that's the only one.
Transfer in 2016 is 144,608. And revenue PFC, that is the passenger facility charge for everyone that gets on SkyWest at the airport, was 33,733. Total available reserves 333,789. 2017, beginning balance 306,170. Operational transfer to reserve 108,172. Revenue PFC estimated to be 45,000.
Was the paint sprayer that we approved a couple weeks ago, did it not come out of this fund? Was that something?
Paint sprayer came out of the airport contingency fund.
Oh, okay.
By the way, that arrived today also, believe it or not. 2018, no big projects planned. That's why there's nothing down there on the project side. 2019, would be replace the loader, but that's kind of got stranded in the FAA's policy with Buy American 100%. No intermixing at all. Whether that will change remains to be seen, but until it does, it's probably going to move on down the road another year at least. 2020, apron drainage improvements, mainly on the east side, 62,365 estimate. 2021 estimate on the runway 422 edge line lighting of 76,200. And 2022 rehabilitate taxiway mic design only 40,750. And parking lots improvements in 2023 of 13,274. No real big projects in the next several years. Those have been done. Runway reconstruction, 422 construction, and mic 1 replacement. So the big projects have been done, which is good. So snow broom was bought last year, or in 2016 delivered. And reconstruct taxiway I in this year is 129,041. Runway fence will proceed. The FAA just made the determination very recently that the fence skirt will be required on that fence. That's a piece of fence skirt that's about a 48 to 60 inch piece. It goes at a diagonal into the ground, 30 to 36 inches deep.
So you're not tunneling in?
I've been thinking about it all day.
It'll keep you in or out, I don't know which. Be the only commercial airport in Kansas that has that, I might add.
Really?
It has the skirt.
Yeah. Are you talking about the skirt?
Skirt. Yes.
So why would that be?
Yeah.
Just because they said?
Just because they said,
That's nice.
We have the most wildlife.
Oh, yeah, the most wildlife. I don't believe that, but
yeah.
okay.
No, just because they said,
Yeah.
it's not negotiable anymore.
Yeah, I heard that loud and clear. Yeah.
The carryovers there decreased somewhat, partially because we'll be getting less airport improvement money because we have less big projects for one. Project-wise, on large ones at the airport, it's in very good shape.
Good
Got a
deal.
great airport.
It's good to
East
hear.
Canada. Very good. Schedule, award of bid May 2017. Submit grant application to FAA 2017. Construction summer, fall 2017. It's based on the FAA's disbursement of funds. Their fiscal year starts October 1, so they like to do a lot of issuing of grants in August and September. This project is weather critical. It's estimated to be November, possible December completion. So the tail end of it's pushing into start of winter or extremely late fall. Options, award the base bid plus alternates 1 and 2. Award base bid only or with any combined or combination of alternates. Provide staff with other direction. Reject all bids. Staff recommendations, recommend accepting the low bid, Paul Wurtenberger, for the base bid plus alternates 1 and 2. Action requested, contingent upon FAA awarding a grant for federal funding. Accept the bid for the base bid plus alternates 1 and 2 from Paul Wurtenberger Construction in the amount of $471,592 to reconstruct taxiway I at Hayes Regional Airport. Authorize staff to submit a grant application to FAA for federal assistance in funding of this project, and to authorize the city manager to take all actions necessary to carry out this project, including the execution of the FAA grant when offered. This is high on their list with the FAA, so we don't really anticipate any delay of any type on their part. Any questions?
I'll make a motion contingent upon FAA awarding a grant for federal funding, consider accepting a bid for base bid plus alternates 1 and 2 from Paul Wartenberger Construction to reconstruct taxiway I at the Hayes Regional Airport. But, yeah, that's good enough, isn't it?
I don't know.
I'll second that motion.
Is that good enough for you?
You can say as
As
the
written?
rest of the motion as written and presented by staff, if that's your intent.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Motion by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Jacobs. Any questions on that? Okay, all in
How
favor?
come, I do have a
Mark,
question,
sorry.
I'm sorry. How come we moved this up from 2019 it's on the capital improvement plan?
FAA moved it up. They wanted to fast track it
Okay.
because of the condition of the pavement, and they have the funds.
It needs it, I was just curious. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I'll be kind of in the minority. If the FAA is not going to fund alternate 1, then I don't really see why we need to do it. But I know I'll be in the minority, so that's fine.
All right, what you said. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. This is 4-0.
It did not, sir.
Oh,
Nay.
passes to nay. I'm sorry, nay. Okay, 3-1. My bad. Sorry. Should've been paying attention.
Brenda caught that in
Yeah.
English. She would have
Thank
corrected.
you, Brenda. So then we need one, do we need a second one on that, or how's that?
Do we have there's a second agenda item, correct? It's mostly just the, yeah, Ovid, why don't you just run through real quickly? It's for the engineering.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Total project cost, design through admin, inspection and construction, $645,222. City share, $129,041. Options, approved work authorization from number 12. It's 12 changes to the master professional services agreement drafted in 2011. In the amount of $93,100 contingent upon the FAA awarding a grant. Provide staff with alternate direction. Staff recommends approving the work authorization from Burns McDonnell contingent upon the FAA grant approval and authorizing the city manager to execute authorization number 12. Action requested contingent upon the FAA awarding a grant for federal funding, approve the work authorization from Burns McDonnell in the amount of $93,100 and authorize the city manager to execute authorization number 12.
I'll make a motion contingent upon FAA awarding a grant for federal funding, consider authorizing the city manager to execute work authorization number 12 with Burns and McDonald to be funded out of the Airport Improvement Fund.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Jacobs. Any other comments? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. 4-0. Okay. Hey, but I enjoyed talking to you yesterday. I was out there yesterday and he was talking about how the airport, I think you said it felt like a big city airport. Airplane was full, people getting off.
Oh, that's
It was
nice.
full.
It was noisy.
Yeah, it was
Noisy, that's good.
And it was full, people getting back on. That's a really good sign.
And that's what we care about. We don't care how many get off.
Yeah, exactly.
How many
You
get
get
off.
honors.
How many
Yeah,
gallons?
it's,
Yeah, it had a nice feel.
yeah, and I was up.
Oh, and the fly-in coming up too. I'm
Yes.
excited about
Yes,
that.
absolutely.
Planned June 3rd, 9 a.m., 1 p.m., B-17, P-51, the featured display aircraft.
That'd be awesome.
Did you all volunteer your time on that?
I did. I was curious. Are you kind of heading that up, or
Yes.
how? Okay.
I did too.
It's fun. I've done it the last 2 years, but I got National Guard drill
Oh.
that weekend and I won't be able to do it.
I'll
but-
bring Danny along in your place.
What all do you need for volunteers yet for that, or do you need anything, or?
Volunteers is really all we need at this point. We have everything else secured or required or on-site or have it from previous shows. Volunteers are always needed and requested because sometimes they can't all stay for the duration. And we have to start a little sooner than 9, so can't make a long day.
Sure.
Right.
That's a good time. I hope to volunteer out there also. I haven't had a chance to see if I'm going to be in town, but it's definitely, it's always fun to fly.
Even if it's 1 hour, it's
Yeah.
most appreciated and needed.
I know kids will definitely love it. It's a good time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Next item on the agenda, number 14, resolution amending the boundaries of the replat of 46th Street, First Edition Improvement District.
Busy guy.
Jesse Rohr, I promised this last time, you'll see me tonight.
Thank you.
This should be a quick item, too. So, this request is to amend resolution number 2015-001 to correct a legal description error that was discovered. The property that the benefit district and the resolution pertains to is located in northwest area of Hayes, just north of 46th Street. Lots 12 and 13, circled here, are the 2 lots in question. The original documents that were approved back in 2014 and 15, for whatever reason, included lots 13 and 14 instead of 12 and 13. So it was a simple typo and error, and we need to get that corrected. The original petition included the incorrect legal description, as mentioned, the error on the 1 lot. So subsequently, the resolution approved by the City Commission in January of 2015, and all the documents that followed included the incorrect information as well. Fortunately, the error was discovered prior to bond issuance and establishment of the assessment of the individual properties. Bond counsel, as well as the City Attorney's Office, approved and actually helped draft the appropriate documents, including a corrected petition, in addition to the resolution that's in front of you, to help make the corrections. So our simple options for this one are to ask you to amend the resolution to correct the legal description, or I guess you could provide alternate direction to staff. Staff would recommend approving the amended resolution to correct the error that was found in the legal description found in Resolution 2015-001, originally approved January 8th of 2015. This would ensure that the bond issuance continues down the path as the City Clerk's Office is working on right now. Any questions on that item?
I would move that we approve resolution number 2017-007, amending resolution number 2015-001, thereby correcting the legal description of the boundary of the improvement district of the replat of 46th Street, First Edition.
Second.
Thought maybe you lived in lot 12.
It's getting late.
Motion by Commissioner Myers, second by Commissioner Jones. I'm assuming there's no comments. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Thanks,
That's
Jesse.
cool. Thank you, Jesse, for everything.
Full night for you.
Oh.
Just when you thought the meeting couldn't get any better.
Gosh, Sean, what was I thinking?
The regress report.
I would hope not.
Well, my kids don't go to bed till 9, so I think I can do this in 40 minutes.
Thanks, appreciate that.
I'm Assistant City Manager Jacob Wood with this month's progress report. This isn't something that the city's doing, but I just want to highlight that the 8th Street project has started. This is a picture of some of the demolition. Everything seems to be moving along as planned. Haven't run into any issues at this point, so hopefully that thing just keeps plugging away. Also, the Public Works Department has been working on the Old 40 bypass east of Vine Street for quite some time here, last probably over a month, and they are nearing completion out there, so they should be done at the end of next week. So that's been a big project, and if you drive there, it's a tremendous improvement in the area.
Yes.
These guys do a great job. I say this a lot, but it's a testament. These guys can do concrete work like nobody else. We're lucky to have people that can do that in-house, so we're fortunate.
It's not just there, like over on, everywhere I've seen Centennial, they do such phenomenal work.
Yes, they do.
We'll move on to the Parks Department. We've been working on the medians on the North Vine area. You see the guys out there working on that area. There's been a lot of rework on that area, and it's looking better and better, and they'll continue to do that. as time goes by.
Speaking of North Vine, did we just recently do some sidewalk work up there? Because I noticed the other day there were people crossing and there were crosswalks. I don't remember there being that there at 43rd and Vine.
We have done some work up there.
Have done some work, okay.
We're in the process of putting in pedestrian facilities. I know it's a novel idea, but at all four legs of the 43rd and Vine, we only had, I believe, one leg. We had
Right.
pedestrian facilities. So, and
Well, I just
building
saw,
more hotels, there's gonna be more people walking up there.
right, well, I saw people walking from the hotel over there and then cross, and I thought, oh, it's really nice that we have that, so.
Speaking of that, I'm sorry to interrupt your progress.
Sorry,
report.
we've got
I know, we got plenty of time.
35 more minutes.
I noticed the other day, the new Starbucks, we have like sidewalks directly going into it and they build into it. Are they gonna build around that? I mean, it's like you walk into it just like ends, dead ends. It's-
Don't,
Jesse's
Jesse.
getting up.
You
know what I'm
guys-
talking
That
about?
will actually be tied
It
in.
was done.
That will be tied
There's a
in?
little shift in the parking lot when they did it, but it will be a continuous sidewalk
Okay.
when complete, right?
You said you were done. Thank you, Jesse. I just noticed that the other day, and I thought, well, that's kind of strange. So, okay, thank you. Carry on, sir.
Another project in the Parks Department that we recently completed, the Parks staff in conjunction with NCK Tech have upgraded the Kiwanis Park Shelter. They've added electricity and lighting and electrical outlets. Onto the Police Department. We had Investigator Aaron Larson and Corporal David Gillen present at the Fort Hays State University Social Work and Law class. We also had Corporal Vilsling attend the Hayes Middle School Career Fair to discuss what his career is like as a Hayes police officer. On to IT. IT has continually been improving the GIS system that we have. Recently, they've added additional plat updates, so there's additional plat layers in there. They've put in some of the historical subdivisions and then also the new ones as you're coming online. So you take a look at that. It's kind of interesting to see the new stuff.
They do it on that computer, right?
They do. That's the only computer they have. We only let them have one. On to the fire department. The fire department completed wildfire training. You may recall a couple of months ago we got called out to help with some grass fires. It's not something that we typically do, so we've been training so that we're better prepared for that in the future. We've also had several school tours at the fire department in the last couple of weeks. Kind of the last few weeks of schools, it seems like the schools are rounding up their field trips, and the Hayes Fire Department is on that list, so we get a lot of children through there. On to the CVB. CVB has updated its website. This is a new website. Their old website was several years old. It's one of the big things that they wanted to do is have a website that was more user-friendly on a mobile device. So that was accomplished with this website update. You can check out the website at visithays.com. The CVB also was part of the Hayes Headlines. It's a new TV show that's put on by Nex-Tech. The CVB, Chamber, and DHDC all have some time to talk about upcoming events, and that's played on the Nex-Tech channel. You can go to the Nex-Tech YouTube channel as well and check out what's upcoming. On to the Department of Water Resources, the maintenance facility has been a work in progress for quite some time, and they're just kind of putting the finishing touches in some of the office area and training site there. And then the last thing that I will mention, watering restrictions start on June 1st, and they last through September 30th. Watering your yard is not allowed between noon and 7 p.m., so June 1st is coming up, so pay attention to that when you're watering your lawn. Might not have to water if it keeps raining. So. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jacob.
Report?
I have nothing to report.
No reports.
I have a couple of things. First, I'd like to thank Commissioner Lance Jones, our Assistant City Manager Jacob Wood, my son-in-law Lieutenant Colonel Dean Mitchell, and all of our soldiers and veterans active, as well as their families for their service to our country as we look at Memorial Day on Monday. My son-in-law will tell you the families of these servicemen are the true heroes in these situations, and I'd like to thank them all, and I hope we all take advantage of the Memorial Day activities that we're having in the community. And I'll do this again when he's here, but I want to congratulate our city attorney, John Byrd. for receipt of the Kansas Bar Association Outstanding Service Award, I think is what it was called. Very prestigious award, and if you take the time to look on Facebook or other places, all of his accomplishments over time, there are many. And
Yeah.
I know he's in Oregon or on his way there for real, not just peddling this time, so congratulations, John.
Thank you. I don't have anything.
I have a couple of things. Maybe not a couple things, I don't know. One, you may or may not have read the New York Times article on the shortage of sodium bicarbonate happening across the country right now. It has nothing to do with the city, but I have a platform, so I'm going to use it. It blows my mind that a shortage of baking soda is crippling our healthcare system in America. For anybody who's not aware, sodium bicarbonate is literally baking soda that you go to the store and buy. And it's used in a lot of different situations, used in a lot of open heart surgeries because during the trauma, your body can become acidotic. And sodium bicarbonate is a base, and so it's used to correct the acid-base level in patients. And that also happens in critical code situations or patients who are septic. And if you don't correct that acid base level within hours, the patient will die. So there were only 2 manufacturers in the country of sodium bicarbonate, IV sodium bicarbonate. One was Hospira, which actually was manufactured in McPherson, Kansas. And there was another second manufacturer with very limited distribution. They had less than 10% of the market. Vast majority of the market was from Hospira. And Hospira was recently bought by Pfizer. And as soon as the sale completed, all of a sudden, we have this huge shortage of sodium bicarbonate. And it just blows my mind that something that is literally baking soda that you put in water, and then you put it in either a vial or a syringe and you inject it into a patient, has suddenly become this hot commodity that nobody can get. I work in the cancer center, and day in and day out I see insurance companies approving drugs that extend survival, in one case by 11 days. And they're paying $10,000 a month for it, and you don't even have to get a prior authorization for it. But we can't get sodium bicarbonate to save critical patients in a hospital. Something is wrong with American healthcare. I can't figure out what it is, and quite honestly, Eisenhower talked about the industrial government complex. I think that there's a pharmaceutical government complex that needs to get broken up. It is beyond belief that something like sodium bicarbonate, baking soda, can cripple our healthcare system. And until people like you and me and others start screaming at our elected representatives to fix this, it's going to continue to be what it is, because they allow manufacturers to do this. And not only that, but then when they try to fix it, they put up more barriers so that there can't be more companies fixing this. The fact is if there were 8 companies making sodium bicarbonate, we wouldn't be in this situation. But the government has put up so many barriers, and now we're in a position where there's only 2 manufacturers. This is what we've been given. And we continue to award manufacturers who have drugs that cost $10,000 a month to use and don't show any benefit whatsoever, but then we're not able to supply even the most basic of drugs. It blows my mind. That's my rant. Thank you for listening.
I feel like in another 6 months, I'll be a registered pharmacist.
It's so.
Seriously.
I will say that just in case anybody's wondering, in Hayes we have a buyer who, when Pfizer bought out Hospira, we all saw this coming a mile away. We're in way better shape than other places in the country.
So if I want to go cook cookies tonight, I can get.
You are not getting any out of me, sir. No.
I also want to wish everybody a happy Memorial Day, and we are adjourned.